All right. One of the rare nighttime recordings here at HumpDayCalls. Um, Today, thanks for joining me, Jeff Revilla. And you are, I think, how I came to know you is from your podcast. You have a couple different things going, but how did you get started with podcasting?
Oh wow, I fell in love with podcasting around 2007, 2008, and I even have right here. I have one of the old iPods that were in color. I got it engraved in 2007 for Father's Day, and
Nice.
I just fell in love with like, oh my god, here's a medium that people are creating and they're distributing on their own. And I was like, I was following and listening, and I fell in love with it. And I was used to be terrified of my voice. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't think people wanted to hear it. I'm from Pittsburgh, right? I lisp a little bit, and it took me till 2015. It took me 8 years to record my first and it was December 19th of 2018 or 2015. It was the end of 2015. So it took me 8 9 years to get the courage to get on a microphone and record my voice. So it was a little bit of a journey, but that's how I got started. I started with a trivia show in 2015.
Wow. What kind of equipment did you use when you started out?
Oh my goodness, I have my first microphone up here. It was a condenser mic. I was in my basement, which had drop ceilings, and we put in like this foam floor. I got a pretty decent sound out of it for what it was, but the thing that really worked well for me, there was a platform in 2015, 2016 called Blab. And you'll meet people from time to time who were big Blab fans. Like uh, you were diehard. And it was really the first, like we're using now, StreamYard to record. And you see a lot of podcasts recording with four people in a box on a screen. And Blab was like the social media, had this great social element where you could go live and within 2 minutes you'd have 40 people on your show and you could pull any of them in to the show. They could click the button and they would be up on screen. And I was like, oh, we can do something with this. And I was like, I bet I could have people. I used to have 8 people from around the world call in and play trivia. And it started because of this Blab program. And 8 people is insane. Now we do three, but
Yeah.
trying to book 8 people per show is a pain. Trying to book one person per episode can be a pain. And that platform is what really enabled me to combine, getting over my fear of voice, getting over my fear of recording, and having some sort of social gaming element, making it fun. I'm always like fun and goofy. So to be able to just have 8 other people from around the world be fun and goofy with me kind of, gave me that courage to go forward.
What were you doing in that 8 years build up to your first podcast? How were
L-
you exploring it?
Listening, digesting, I go back to like the old marketing podcasts, like Marketing Over Coffee, the Beancast. I think Advercast was a Joseph Jaffe podcast. I just digested everything I could get my hands on, and I would listen to all. I never really got into entertainment podcasts and comedians until maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But I was just intaking marketing and podcasting content. Just what is it? Well, how do I figure this out? How do I get from A to B? And I just kind of self taught, but immersed myself in it.
Wow. And then, so your experience from then to now, how did it go with updating your equipment? And when did you figure on getting different equipment? And would you have your eye on when you were first started to update it?
Yeah, it's little bits and pieces at a time. You're trying to figure out what works. Even wearing earbuds is something you could tell a beginner. A lot of beginners love to wear those old Apple earbuds with the microphone on the cord, and they're talking into it, but then they put their cord down, and the microphone's rubbing on their shirt. They turn their head, and
Mm.
you hear that jostling and that rustling, and you find little things and you tweak, little by little. Now I use this Elgato microphone. It's an XLR, plugs right in. I have a the Stream Deck, which I can do sound effects for a trivia show. I got to do right and wrong answers. I got to do timers, the theme songs. So now I'm combining elements like you're doing here. This is using this type of setup is phenomenal. And, using the live stream, incorporating elements. We do a show where the audience at home is, on their phone giving scores to the podcast. So we're doing these interactive elements, and we just keep testing and building and pushing the limits of what a live stream can be and how interactive can it be and how do we get more people involved and enjoying it.
So is that where your heart's at with the creation of, I guess, entertainment type shows is live?
Yeah, I definitely fell in love with live, and that's because of Blab. And I'm trying to take it even further. Like I'm trying to get to the point where I have a physical space where I not only have an in-person audience, maybe 30, 40 people, little seat theater. They're engaged, they're interacting. I'm doing a live show or producing a live show on the stage. But not only are those 40 people in the audience watching, it's being streamed out, to an infinite amount of people, however many people can consume it. Now we have this element where people at home are leaving comments. They can jump on, interact with the people. So I'm trying to build this whole, like I call it the infinite seat theater, where I'm not limited by capacity. I'm not limited, by anything other than my imagination. And the people who are in the audience and the people at home can build this unique experience together. And the entertainment is that's why I'm having fun with these trivia shows, and we do like a podcast showcase show, and I've done shows conferences like for autism and the women of independent podcasts. We've done these conferences and just trying to get it to the next level. And I love the interview style, but I think there's more. I think there's so much more to this, and we can keep pushing the boundaries of this.
When you do the theater shows, how do you pick your venues, and what kind of places are you recording those?
Well, currently we're doing everything's virtual still. My slogan is virtual events and experiences for independent content creators. But I'm actively seeking for a building. I've looked at every building in my town. I live in a town that's 100 years old, and for some reason, all the buildings are 17 feet wide by 120 feet long. It's not a great layout for
bowling
for
alleys.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could have if I had 40 people, the 40th person would be, 70 feet away from the stage. It would be silly to have, rows of 4 or 5 people, back 10 rows. So I'm trying to find the right building, but I have the right structure. I have the right idea. It's finding the right place for where we're at.
Is that a show that if you were doing it, you would take on the road, or is it something you're trying to do locally?
Well, I did. I do have it's called the portable theater, which is like almost like a pop-up theater. It's very simple. It's microphones, a mixer, cameras, and some speakers. I've built I've kind of put it together so it all fits in the backseat of a sedan. Right? I can pull it up. I can pop it at a bar or a coffee shop, and we've done several coffee shop shows, parking lot shows. We've done shows at like festivals and fairs, and the way I wanted to do that was I don't need a truck, I don't need equipment, I don't need a crew. I can throw all this in the back of my seat. I even have a podium now, so it's actually the podium takes up the back seat and the equipment goes in the trunk. But I can fit a whole portable theater inside of a sedan. So then I can wheel it out, pop it up, and I'm ready to go. So I do the portable shows, but I really want to I think getting to a home base is kind of the next level where I not only do my shows but produce other podcasts in the area, do charity fundraising. I think there's a lot with charity and fundraising. Well, the example I use is these kids are going around, they're selling pizzas and hoagies, and they might get 10 to 20% of every sale. If we were to do some sort of event, like maybe for a ski club or a theater group for a high school theater, we could probably give them back 75, 80% of the ticket sales if we can build like a 60 to 90-minute show. Their grandmas and grandparents from Florida and Washington could also participate where they couldn't do a fundraiser locally. So I think there's this way to, really bring more people together and really, I think charity is kind of an underserved market where everybody can win. I think a 75-80% cut to a charity is a phenomenal cut, and then the house gets a there's time involved in setting up the show, scripting out the show, and booking all the acts and getting all the little games. So the I think both parties win really well with this structure.
Yeah. Have you looked at military bases, kind of at the MWR? I think that's morale, welfare, and recreation, something like that.
No, I should though. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good one. Like kind of like a Bob Hope tour. You just go
Yeah.
around to different bases, or the ones that are local. You start with those.
Yeah. Now I do have I'm a full-time marketing director. So trying to squeeze some things on the weekend. I've looked into, like, there's a college circuit where they do like 2 p.m. shows on college campuses and cafeterias, but again, it's traveling midday that I kind of run into some hurdles right now until I can get to that place where maybe I can replace my income with doing the production and doing the live shows.
Yeah. Do you have a production company that you run yourself?
Yeah, it's the main one. I'm the way I've built this is from ideation to the fulfillment of the event. I'm everything in between. I'm the ticket master to the arena. I can help you do the event, set it up, structure it, facilitate ticket sales, process the ticket sales, do what we're doing here with the live streaming and the live event through a recording, and then delivering on that too. So from start to finish, my production company, it's called Paduti Live Events, and that you can see there's events listed there. You can go ahead and you can RSVP, which is really nice. Like, a lot of problems that you see with live streaming is, you go on Facebook, oh, I see somebody has a live stream coming up on Friday, or LinkedIn's notorious for this. You sign up for a 2 p.m. live stream. LinkedIn typically won't send you the notification until about 2:45 that, hey, that live stream you signed up for, it's going on now. And you miss it a lot of times.
Yeah.
And they don't, most of these services don't want you watching live events, because when you're watching a live stream on Facebook or a live stream on LinkedIn, they can't serve you ads. So it's in their benefit to let you catch the replay, because if you catch the replay, they can hit you with an ad. So with what I'm trying to do with not just my events, but anybody in the community can list their event for free on my platform. They can go in there, list it, and when somebody RSVPs or buys a ticket, they get emailed a calendar invite. So it doesn't matter if you're live streaming on Twitch, on YouTube, on Facebook. It's completely platform agnostic. But the people who are interested will get that email with a built-in calendar invite. So when you sign up for a 2 p.m. show, it goes right on your calendar, and you'll be alerted before 2 p.m. that, hey, that show's starting. That's one of the things I'm pretty proud of. Like, I don't care where you live stream. Like, Facebook cares if you live stream on Facebook because they want the traffic there. Me, I'm like, I just want you to make sure you can connect with your audience. It doesn't matter, where you're doing that at.
Jeez. How much editing does if you do it live, do you need somebody like working on the boards, or is it something you can do all yourself?
Some of it. So some of the ones that the community lists, they completely produce and run themselves. It's just like a message board. You're just sharing ideas and sharing content and sharing. They run all that themselves. They're responsible for everything outside of the RSVP fulfillment. So they're going to run the stream. When I do it, we do the trivia show now, and the last couple years we've done this for television as well. So this show is not just an audio podcast anymore. We do it for local. It's called Armstrong Neighborhood Channel 100. If you're out here in Western PA, it's on television. So we use this just like we're doing the same exact process we're using now. But I do have a producer who's backstage, pulling, pushing buttons, pulling levers, making things happen. Makes it a lot easier to just host the show. I handle the sound effects. That's about the only thing that I do handle anymore on that show. But it takes, if you want to do you can do a pretty good production with one person nowadays. The technology's there to be able to switch between, whoever's speaking, to change the layouts around. You can do that with a click of a button most of it, if you're just having an interview style or, 4 people talking, you can handle that on your own. Something a little more complex where I'm bringing up scoreboards, I'm playing video, we have, lightning rounds and people buzzing in and the sound effects. Then you need about 2 people, but you can put on a pretty good, I mean, it's hard to tell, who's all involved, and it's just 2 of you, and the production level is so high now because of the technologies here that you'd be surprised how little people you need to actually do it. For my job, I work in automotive, and the 1 year for COVID, there wasn't an auto show in our town, so we like, well, we'll do our own auto show, and we set it up so we had a cameraman in the showroom who was social distance from everybody. So, that person was live streaming a video feed. We had the hosts were in an office with a green screen. We had a salesperson in an office in a showroom. And we assembled this so that we were doing a live, product demonstration with people in different areas. We were doing an auto show, like a true virtual auto show with people in 4 different areas. I'm producing it, and we got so many compliments on like, how did you pull this off? Like, oh, it's just me and my office, like doing this. And like it was like a news channel, or like it was a Hollywood production. And I'm like, well, I appreciate that, but let me show you the secrets.
Nice.
I could teach you how to do this in an hour. You'll be an expert. But it's you got to put the time in. Maybe it takes me an hour because I've done this for 7 years.
Yeah.
But I don't believe it's unattainable for the average person to put on a pretty good quality show.
How much when you started to now, do you think you've kind of leveled off on your understanding of the technology, or like when you first started that learning curve, how steep was that?
I think it's gradual because I think the barrier to getting into content creation is low, right? Technology, WordPress changed what it was like to publish, right? WordPress lowered the ability to publish to the internet. Then, then podcasting also, early 2000s, that changed the way to get an audio message to people. And then as podcasting got cheaper, you had different platforms come in, and eventually you had something like Anchor, which I'm not an Anchor fan. Which is now called Spotify podcast.
Yeah.
It kind of blew up podcasting in a bad way, where there's 90% of those shows are one show or 2 shows, and they've been abandoned for 2 years. It really lowered the barrier, but it flooded the market with nonsense. At some point, there's got to be a clean. If Spotify legitimately cares about podcasting, I hope they start to clean up and remove some of those shows, because that barrier was too low. You do need some barrier, and it is there was a little bit of a learning curve, but what do you got to do? You got to learn to record your voice. And then if you want to take it further, you got to learn video. And right now I'm a little blown out. I need to adjust my lights a little bit, but you need to learn how to light yourself. I have 5 lights around me. I have a green screen. I got 2 lights on the green screen. I got a fill light. You got to start playing with lights a little bit. If I back up a little bit, I'm probably a little better. But if you learn bits and pieces at a time, and you constantly improve on it, and you'll get to a point where you're like, oh my goodness, like I go on a Zoom call, like with a background, and I'm all lit up, and everybody else is in their home office with the sun, backlit.
Yeah.
They're like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm just making videos.
Yeah. Nice. With Spotify, how do you think they should go about kind of cleaning it up? Do you think you just have like an archive section where it's, if these haven't been updated for however long, a year or 2, that they put them in this archive section, and then it cleans up for the rest of the active ones, or divide it between active and inactive?
Yeah. Oh, I would love that. I mean, if they want to host it, if their agreement was, hey, we'll host it forever for free, great. If somebody actively wants to go look and seek out that podcast, then yeah, that person should get access to it. But having it listed in the main directory, it's too much noise. There's too much. They say 4 to 5 million podcasts, and half of them are inactive, haven't produced anything in months or years. And maybe there's a cutoff time. I get it. Like I've gotten burned out and not recorded for 6 months, during these almost what I'm coming up on 9 years here. I've had 6 month breaks where I just like forget it, I'm done with this. But I came back. So I think if there's some sort of inactivity period, or maybe you don't get full coverage till you've released 5 episodes, then then it starts to ramp you up in the algorithm, and then the community decides, is this a podcast that we want more of or not, and then let the algorithm kind of like filter it out. But I think you got to get to 5 to 10 shows before you even know, like, hey, what am I doing here? Am I doing okay? Am I getting better? Is it improving?
Yeah. The what am I doing here? I ask myself that a lot. And this is the 28th show of this, but I do think that actual thing is, what am I doing here? And then you just say, well, if it's something I can keep going reasonably into my schedule and I'm still having fun doing it, then I'll keep doing it. But when you got burned out on it, what do you think caused that?
Yeah, well, I'm one man. I think one man show. I think producing a trivia show isn't as easy as just getting somebody to show up.
Yeah.
I'm booking 3 people per episode, and I'm writing all the questions. So it takes me about an hour to 2 hours to construct all the questions. We usually record 2 shows in a night, so every 2 weeks. And this is my schedule now. At least I have a producer and an editor. But I would have to, I'm writing all the shows. There's the final round is 10 videos. So I then produce 10 videos for the show. And the show's only a 30-minute show. So that's like a 10-minute segment. Each video is about a minute long. So to do a show, I have about a full day of work, 6 to 8 hours involved per show. And that's not even editing, which I don't do anymore, luckily, because of the TV channel now handles that. But I would have 10 to 14 hours per episode, and the downloads were good, but it would never be a thing that would pay a bill where I'm going to be hey, this is 16 hours of work. I'll make money on ticket sales, and it breaks even for sure, but it's never going to be a one-man show that I'll ever get with. I got to get to the next level. I need to go to this producer. I need to have this television now. Now I'm starting to get a team, and now it's ramping up again. But there were points when for years, from 2015 to 2020, was just me doing all of it, doing the editing, doing the promotion, doing the sharing. And it wears on you after a while. I love doing it, but it's a lot of work.
What was that? What was it that made you or gave you the drive to keep doing it?
It's usually just like, it's one like little thing, like, somebody reaches out to you, or you get a weird comment, like, where you guys been? Or, man, I missed this show. I listen to it every night. I had somebody tell me that they listen to my show to fall asleep, which I don't know is a compliment or not, but they say, my voice is like a soothing. I think my voice is layered in sarcasm and so they're like, yeah, it's like almost like a Bob Ross type of like mellow ASMR. I don't want to say ASMR because I'm definitely not like that, but it's just like that one little spark, or you go back and you play an old episode, and you hear just like this one person laughing at something silly you said, and it just sparks it, like, oh, that's why I was doing that, like. And it'll just something will just trigger, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna start. I'll do a show. We'll do a special episode. See what happens.
Nice. What took most of your time up when you were first starting? Like, what was, I don't want to say the thing you liked the least about it, but what was the thing that, I guess it's different for everybody, but that piece that you were trying to learn, and then it either got better because you got better at it, or you just tolerated it?
Yeah, I would say it was for this particular show, the trivia show. Back then, when I was doing 8 contestants, I was writing 60 plus questions per show. I did not like that. So the shows eventually have gone from 8 to 3 people, still the same amount of time. But we're putting in different elements now to make it, a full 30 minutes. It's a much better produced show. But the thing I used to hate, more than writing the show, I mean, everybody hates pre-production. The It was the editing. Just back then, I think I was using Sony Vegas and just learning the little bits and little bit. I love editing. Like the other show I do, Rise and Outshine, it's a labor of love editing that show. I'm doing 4 cameras. I'm doing, I'm bringing people in and out of audio. I'm changing things. I'm using the StreamYard 4 in a box, but then I'm cutting the individual full screen shots of each person. Like I love it. It's almost like I don't want, I'm not putting it on the same level of like a Da Vinci or Michelangelo, carving a sculpture. But it feels like that now. Like I really get in there and manipulate the audio and just cut it and taking out people that talk over people now and getting rid of it. So now the joke lands, or I even like moving jokes. Like the timing's just he's a little bit late. It'd be so great if it was like a tenth of a second faster, and like I'll bring in the timing and everything. That's the part I've really the production is something I've fallen in love with. Like more than anything.
What program do you use for that?
I'm a Premiere person now. Now I'm in the Adobe suite. I even edit the podcast in Premiere. I'll just extract the MP3 file, but I formulate it based on what I've seen during the show. I do the audio and the video at the same time. Then I export the MP3 as the audio podcast.
Okay. Yeah, the first time I saw you was through actually Matchmaker.fm, and then started watching the Rise and Outshine one.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm just going to watch a little of this to see what it's like. And then I ended up watching 3 or 4 shows of it. So it's a good show. It's fun. And
yeah, thank you very much. That's the one I'm talking about is my labor of love.
I know. The amount of editing on that sounds arduous to me. I liked Spotify at the very, I think I like Spotify better than YouTube, just because it was easier to sign up for it and to go through all those first things that you would do in your first 20 some episodes. Mm-hmm. So I'm not into the heavy editing like that. Like I don't take it out and put it in another program and sync up the audio and the video. And maybe I'll get to that. I think of it more of like a GarageBand type setup now, not the program, but just like this is more of a try to fit it into the schedule enough so it's not so much of a hassle, but it's still fun. So it doesn't take the fun out of it. It doesn't turn into work. But I'm not under the illusion that it's ever going to, catapult into some sort of major success as far as like sales or whatever goes. But I wasn't looking for that. It's more of just talking with people about creative things. So that was exciting.
Yeah. Now the podcast may not but the podcast is definitely a gateway into so many other things, whether, even this connection that we've made, through Matchmaker or other connections you made through other shows lead to other connections, lead to other events. So maybe podcasting isn't, not everybody's going to be a Joe Rogan, right? That's always the example. That's a pipe dream, right? It's not going to happen for people just sharing information and having casual conversation. But the people that you meet put on events, and the people that you meet know people who speak at events. Because when you get into conventions and traveling and speaking, even just your local business bureau, your local AMA marketing association, those people look for speakers all the time. Having a podcast is a gateway into other events. So, for most people, podcasting isn't going to be $1 million a month type endeavor. You'd have, at this point now, you have to be a known celebrity, a known comedian, having connections, having A-list guests, really bring in that kind of traffic. And that's where also advertising dollars have kind of moved away from those independents into, oh, I'll just buy a package through this agency and I'll get on, 20 of the best podcasts. So, but having your podcast, it just gives you that extra credibility. It gives you, people know you can speak in front of an audience. They know you're comfortable on a microphone. They know you're comfortable in the hot seat. You start doing little gigs, little AMAs, which have, 30, 40 people. It's a great way to start to build up, and then the paydays come, from speaking engagements.
When you were putting it all together, how did you visualize your structure for your show? And did it change from what you started as, or has it been just refining your original vision of it?
Yeah, it wasn't even the show you see today isn't even the show I started with. And I tell this story all the time. There's a great podcast called Good Job Brain, which was around. It was 4 people who sat around and they picked some sort of topic. We'll say like New York, and all you knew going in the show is the topic was about New York. And the 4 of them would bring something unique about New York. It could have been a game. It could have been a story. It could have been like an unsolved mystery. It could have been some sort of challenge or word play on something. And the 4 of them each went around and took their turn and did their little segment. And it was great. And so the reason my show is called Stuff I Never Knew is because I loved that concept so much, and they kind of went on a break. I was like, okay, well, I'll keep it going. I'll call it, Stuff I Never Knew About Apples, or Stuff I Never Knew About Cars. And so the show would always be themed. And if you look at the early episodes, instead of me having friends, which I still don't really have friends, it was just me doing a trivia show with people from around the world. And the early shows were like Stuff I Never Knew 80s music, and Stuff I Never Knew, movies, or Stuff I Never Knew food. They were very themed episodes because that's kind of the inspiration I had was from that other podcast. But over the years, I never had a panel of regulars. I never had, they were also recording in person. I was fascinated by live streaming, and I could have somebody from, Portland, Maine, Portland, Seattle, Sacramento could be on the show. I was like, I could have all 4 corners of the United States, like, on this show. And that's where I fell in love. And then instead of being a storytelling show about a topic, it became a trivia show where people from around the world could compete. And that's changed over the years we now have this refined format where round 1 is kind of a this or that, where I give kind of a nonsense topic, like real or fake flavors of Oreos. Right? And I'll read you a flavor. You tell me, is it real or fake? That's literally the first round now, something like that. And then the second round, we meet our contestants and they sit in the hot seat. And then after the hot seat, they have to do a name 5 bonus question where I put 10 seconds on the clock, and they have to name 5 things that fit into a category, like name 5 spices in your spice cabinet, go. And there's a timer like cranking down in your ear real loud. And then we do the video round. So we structured it now into what works, and what, we start off real loose, then we put them in the hot seat, but we get to really plug and promote and meet those people. And then they go crazy in the final round. They bring their own buzzers and they're battling it out, and they can get negative points. And you see some people just really sink the ship in that third round they're just buzzing in, and they're just -3, -3, negative. They'll spend all their points in the final round. So we've refined that structure to make it entertaining, not just for television, but also for an audio podcast.
When you first started, or right, I guess before you started, did you talk to other people that were doing podcasts, or was it more of just watching videos of people doing, or watching podcasts, listening to podcasts, and then watching videos about how to do them? Did you have any real life or live contact with people about it?
No, I didn't.
No.
I'm somebody who will dive in and screw up a million ways to Sunday until I figure it out. And I will do things 100. My background, When I grew up skateboarding, I owned a skateboard shop. I owned a skateboard park. If there's anything you can learn from skateboarders, is they will repeat the same thing 1,000 times until they get it right. And so that like skateboarding, punk rock, like I'm DIY. That mentality is carried with me through adulthood. And I started recording. Like I'll figure it out. Like I'll do it again. I recorded shows before I even released them, just to what is going on here? What is happening? What am I doing? I would on that Blab platform. I would just go on other people's shows, and I would just be testing things in real time, like how's my audio sound? You would just hang out and talk to people, and Blab was in hindsight, Blab was kind of that really fast paced learning curve that helped me really formulate, live streaming and entertainment and just having fun.
Sounds like you need to resurrect Blab and run that.
You can't. When you meet, so I'll tell you, if you weren't around for Blab and then you hear about it, and then you'll hear other people mention it, and they'll go, "Oh my goodness, Blab!" It was one of the best times in the internet. It's comparable. I always say so the AI revolution that happened last year made the internet really exciting again. Like you could do things. And the reason was I related it back to like early 2000s, late 90s internet, when the internet wasn't this walled garden of social posts on a feed. The internet was a treasure hunt. Websites used to be valuable. Like you used to go to websites and learn things that had meaning, and you could trust the source. But you would Google a website, read it, find something, Google another website, read that. You would go down wormholes on websites, and it was a treasure hunt, and every day was different on the internet. And that's kind of how AI was. And Blab is kind of in the middle there of a technology that came to the internet that really revolutionized it and made it fun again. And those 3 times are the 3 best times I've had on the internet. I haven't had, social media has been okay. It's been, yeah, but it isn't like AI really lit a spark again. The Blab really lit a spark in production and video production. And then those dream days of the early 2000s of just treasure hunting on the internet were really I think the 3 highest points of the internet so far. If I had to rank them.
Yeah. When you're doing the production for the TV show one, is that recorded on any type of delay, or is it like, are you subject to like censors or anything like that?
Well, we do pre-record. They get released at a later date. We have started to open up the platform that we're on tonight. StreamYard has a webinar function, so it's not public, but you can invite people in. So now we're kind of having like a studio audience coming in, watching the show, just seeing it being put together. Seeing the producer notes, and then we stop the recording. We download the audio and the video. The producer he has other shows. He produces 10 different shows, but he's editing that video for usually a week or 2 of a release date. And we do 2 shows that night.
Yeah. Is that show weekly, or how often does it air?
Twice monthly.
Twice a month. Okay.
Yeah, 2 times.
Jeez. So what would you think if you were talking to a beginner podcaster? What are the big lessons learned, or like if somebody came to you and was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting podcasting. What are the 3 big things I need to know?"
Yeah, this just happened to me about 3 weeks ago. There's a local program helping small businesses get started, and that's where I'm. This theater idea I was talking about earlier. I'm trying to, how can we connect with local businesses? So one of the members of that group reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing a podcast," and within 7 days, I was able to get her from asking a question about how to start a podcast to having her podcast in Apple Podcasts listed and showing up. And she's like, "How did you I didn't know this, you could do this." She's like, "You should write a book." And I told somebody a story, and the first thing they said, like, "You should write a book." And so it really is a process. And now I'm not taking away anything from what she did. She recorded the episode. She edited the episode. She got it to iTunes. I just gave her the stepping stones. And really the first step was we got to figure out how do we get your audio recorded. That was step number one. What do we do? Like, I want to do a podcast. Great. What do you want to do? Why do you want to do this is kind of secondary, but let's do the how first. Let's see, can we get your audio recorded? I don't care if you're going to just use your phone. I don't care if you're going to get a Bluetooth microphone. I don't care if you buy a little handheld, whatever. Let's start somewhere. And that was the first thing. Can we get it recorded? Then we got to how do we edit? In this case, she already had the Adobe suite. So because she's a photographer, I think she had a photographer and she had 2 different products already. I'm like, you're paying for 2 products. I think the suite's like $10 more. She's like, oh yeah. So she upgraded to the suite. So she now had a way to record and a way to edit. And she did it. She went out, she ordered a microphone. She started recording and she had that audio version ready within like 5 days. Now she did that part. She got the final product. I walked her through the submission portion of it, how to get it into, how to get her RSS feed, how to submit that. And then 2 days later, she was like, oh my goodness, I'm in iTunes. So it really is, starting with square one. How are you going to get this? Because you can't have a podcast without audio. How do you capture the audio? How are you going to edit the audio? You don't have to use Adobe Suites. There's other editors out there, but it's a great tool. It is a great tool. And if you only use that, it's like $20, I think, per month. If you have the whole suite's a little bit more, but so we had a how to edit, and then we had distribution. And so she was in a week was able to do a podcast. So anybody can do that. Now they also have to do work in between the steps that I would give them. But if anybody who's getting started, the first thing I would say is figure out how are you going to capture your audio. You can't do anything from there. Like if you don't have that portion figured out, you're not going to do anything else. There's no other steps. If you can have ideas in your head, you can think what you're going to do, but how are you going to capture? Even using StreamYard like this, or Riverside, or Be Live, I think was one. Not Be Live. There's a lot of streaming services out there. You can record audio this way. The way that we're doing it tonight is a great way to get people from different places in the United States to do a show at the same time. Then you can extract the audio and the video. You can even get separate audio and video channels, and then you go from there.
I wonder if the ease of being able to do it is what contributes to so many podcasts starting and then just falling off.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The barrier to entry is low, right? Because you can do a free trial on StreamYard. I think StreamYard even has a free account, right? You can do a free, they put their logo on it, but if you don't care about their logo because you only want the audio, well, you literally have a free method of recording audio with people from anywhere in the world. So, whether you publish that video or not, or you put your little logo over it when you edit it, there's a free way to get audio and video right off the bat. They do have a paid service that does a little bit more, increases the quality a little bit, but that's just you have to figure out how do you get to the point where you have a WAV file or an MP3 file? How do you have something that you can work with?
Do you have some people now, whether it's in a group that you see in person or just talk to otherwise about podcasting, like a peer group where you talk about ideas about it and just commiserate about the process?
Yeah, we have. So one of the things that got me into the live events was an event we did. Tina was around at that time, and she did an event called Indie Pods United, and it was a bunch of us got together for this first event. It was during the pandemic. We're like, okay, we're going to do all these podcasters coming together, and I met Wise and Maria and Phil Better and all these people we've kind of come to know through that one event. And we're starting to see ourselves as like this class. Like you hear comedians talk about, which class were you in? I grew up with Dangerfield and Pryor, and I was in that class. And then you have like the Sandlers and the Farleys and the Spades and the Rocks came up, and that's another class. So we're starting to see ourselves. We're starting to all get traction in different areas, whether it's, business areas, entertainment areas, health and wellness. And we're kind of like, we come together on all these events now, and but anytime we can pick up the phone, we can call each other, we can message each other. Hey, I got a question, or I found this new technology. And just having a group like that. And that's part of, I was talking about, meeting events and this being a gateway. I made those connections. I also know if I'm in a bind and I need a guest, they're the first people I call. They'll be there for me. I'll be there for them when they need somebody. And making those connections making podcasts a lot easier, especially if you have guests. You get somebody that cancels, you got to fill it up quick because I've got 2 other people who set aside their night for me. If I don't have 3 people, I can't do a show, so I got to find somebody fast.
Yeah. What was at the beginning, how did you book guests? Is it just people you knew, or did you have a app or something that you went through?
The Facebook is one of the last things working great on Facebook is hashtag find a guest, hashtag be a guest. There are groups that have thousands and thousands of podcasters in. I do a little blurb about my trivia show. I got 2 days. I'm looking for 6 spots. I'll have all of them booked within 24 hours once that post gets published live. So looking for guests, Facebook is a great way. The matchmaker that you referenced, matchmaker.fm, Podmatch is pretty good. They all take time and effort, especially for the volume of guests that I'm booking. A lot of times I'm just looking for warm bodies, right? I need to fill seats. But you gotta do the outreach. You gotta do the follow up. You gotta kind of pair your schedules together. How do we get this to work at the same time? And once you do that, it does get a little bit easier, and you can start to book out further and further. I have and this is here's my red flag for booking too far in advance, is your show rate drops dramatically, especially for me. If I have 3 people per show, 6 per night when we do recordings, if I book anything over 2 weeks out, I almost guarantee I'm gonna have 1 or 2 that don't show up. Booking guests works great within 7 to 10 days. That's kind of like the sweet spot. Like, I need somebody coming on the show in a week or 2. The show rate's 95%. The show rate for 2 months, if I booked somebody, I can't come on your show till March, and I'm like, okay, well, let's make March work. I guarantee you I'll set aside March, and I won't hear from them a week before. I won't be able to get a hold of them. And they're wasting my time. I'm trying to chase them down. There is a decay in show rate the further out you book.
Do you find that with guests that you book on Facebook or another app that's more likely or less likely?
Definitely through Facebook groups. Some people are real fast, to sign on, and people who are real fast, I don't like. I like to also book them fast too. If I don't want to book them 3-4 weeks out, because it's going to be a problem. That's the way I've come to learn about booking too far out in advance.
Yeah, I've learned a lot just in this short time, and I didn't start the podcast until last September. And from then to now, my biggest stress when I started, I was worried about was the very first thing is the equipment and the program that you use to record it. And then I really like StreamYard. That's working well. And then the other big one was guests. Like, I started with a lot of people I knew the first 10 shows. And then I have people I know interspersed in there, but a lot of them come from matchmaker.fm right now. And I haven't had anyone not show up like the day of recording, where I send the link to them and say, because I'll schedule them however far out, we get it all straight. And then I say, I'll let you know a couple of days before. I'll send a message just to make sure everything's good. And I haven't had anybody drop at that point yet. Maybe a couple times of adjusting times. And every now and then somebody doesn't respond, but then they show up on the day of the recording. Because when I send that message out, it's not a question of, are you still good? It's just checking in, making sure everything's all right. Looking forward to the recording at this time. I'll send you the link 5 minutes before we start. because I don't want them to be sitting around going, when they get to send it. You give them the time, and then you try to send it directly then. And I've had one person cancel about the day before. That's the closest I've had.
Okay.
And I think that would have stressed me out more if I just had one guest a week. Like for podcasting, for me, the idea was consistency. Mm-hmm. So if shows are released every Wednesday, I want to have at least one person every Wednesday. And the original plan was let's talk or record that week.
Okay.
But that was really stressful because you're like, okay, sometimes you come up the day before and you don't have anything to go. And you're like, man, I hope they show up. So you're sitting here, you send the link and you're like, man, I hope they show up. I hope they show up. And I've been lucky so far, but now I've gone to 2 people, 2 shows a Wednesday and 3 shows a Wednesday going since last week going forward. And it's booked through mid-April right now, which does seem a long time, but my success rate of asking people on an app if they want to be on, like I'll look at their information and see if it's a conversation or if it's going to be interesting for me, because I think that's the important part is, do you want to talk to this person? Mm-hmm. And then you get a lot of people on there that will approach you about it, and then you have to look at their site and see, and then see if they actually want to be on a show that talks about creativity or whatever. And that's taken a lot of stress off, because if for some reason I had 3 shows booked for a week and I already have at least 1 recorded and the other 2 don't show up, I'm like, okay. But you definitely need to have ready that 2 or 3 people you can always call that will be on short notice. And with you doing a show that has that many people, yeah, I can see the stressors of that. But that was the big stress for me, was getting guests. And now it's one of the things where I look at and go, I wonder if this is going to be a problem booking that far out, or if there's somebody I want to talk to, can I squeeze them in to a week, or are they not going to be interested booking this far out?
Yeah.
I feel like on the apps, you probably get people that want to be on shows. So that's better than if you were just going on Instagram or X or Facebook or whatever, and then just finding people that maybe not on a whim, but on whatever, were like, oh, that sounds like fun. But
yeah, I will say the quality of a guest from like Podmatch or Matchmaker is way higher. For the trivia show, I'm like I said, I'm looking for 6 people, right? I just need people who like trivia, who are fun on camera, and so I just need to get people there. So the quality isn't as high. And I will say one thing that has changed my show rate. It's gotten way better. And instead of reaching out with just through email, I only reach out through Google Calendar invites now. If you want to be on my show, I will send you a calendar invite. I have a pre-written thing with, here's how we record, here's the link for StreamYard, here's the link to share the event, and if you want to stay connected after, here's my contact information. It's all in the calendar invite, which I copy and paste. Then I can go in, I can pull up, like, I have a show next Thursday. I added 3 people through the invite, and you can set notifications. Like I always do 1 hour before and 1 day before notification. And then Google will give you little green check marks if they said yes. So you'll know, like, okay, they've looked at the invite and they've accepted it. I always tell them to make sure you accept the invite, so I can see their little green check mark that they've accepted the invite. So that has really increased my show rate to, I'd say, 85, 95%. But I'm not doing it. I'm not booking until April. I'm only booking maybe 2 weeks out max. So
what's your rate of people you ask that say either no or don't get back to you?
Like Matchmaker, in the last 2 months, I've probably asked 85, 90. And I would say of people who have gotten back to me, and this is for the podcast showcase show that I do, where I bring on 2 podcasts. They can do 10 minutes.
Right.
That's a much different format than anybody's comfortable with, which I know that's tricky.
Yeah.
That I've probably had, I would say 20% is probably a fair amount that I've booked through Matchmaker. So I've probably booked,
Wow.
10 to 16 out of that 80 ask.
Wow.
And I need judges too. So not only like for the trivia show, am I crazy for trying to book 3 random people, but the podcast showcase show that I do, it's 2 podcasts do 10 minutes per show. So whatever, whoever's on their podcast, like if they have 2 or 3 people, I've got to add them to the calendar invite. Then I invite judges on to judge with me. So I may have 2 or 3 judges per show. So that show, I probably book 6 to 8 people per show because as it wasn't hard enough just booking 3 people. I'm like, oh, let's double down on that.
Yeah. That's well, if you ever did a thing where you just had to book one person, it would seem really easy.
Yeah, I'd probably do one of those a day. Yeah.
Yeah. That Rise and Outshine, that's the show that I saw first.
Mhm.
And yeah, I like that format. It's maybe I got a message from you about being on there, and I probably said the show's not, I don't feel like it is made for that platform. After seeing those other shows, I can see how, because there's plenty of just interview or talk, just conversation podcasts that I've seen on there
Mhm.
that worked okay. But it's, yeah, I like that format. How did you come up with that on your own, or how did that be the first idea of it to what it is now?
Yeah, that wasn't, again, not the first idea. Rise and Outshine was to take the news stories and apply them to your production business or your podcast business, your entertainment business. So I would bring on 4 guests or 3 guests, so it would be 4 of us on a box. The 3 guests, I would give them 3 news stories ahead of time. I'd say, this is what we're going to cover. I'll read the story, and then we would just riff on it and
Mm.
say how that story applies to a YouTube creator or a podcaster. And it was to help you rise in the rankings and outshine the competition. That was kind of
Oh,
the thing.
okay.
And I took a break from that. I don't know why. I don't know why I took it. I just wasn't feeling like I liked that show, but that also is very much like This Old Marketing with Joe Pulizzi and Robert Rose. It's a little bit like the Beancast. It was very much like, remember I said I watched the Beancast from 2007. It was very much
Mhm.
like the Beancast. I was like, that's too close. And then I was like, well, rise and outshine. I mean, rise in the rankings, outshine the competition. That sounds like a talent show. I started thinking like Star Search and America's Got Talent. And there's a comedy podcast called Kill Tony where comedians do
Mhm.
1 minute of comedy in front of like the world's best comedians. And so I was like,
Yeah.
well, we can combine. What if we start, well, if we did like a showcase. I love the idea because the events I were doing, I've done a ton of events that are literally podcast showcases. I hosted 2 international podcast days, the Indie Pods United. We've done a couple of times. So I've done, those were 3 days, 12 hours, um, you know, 60 to 70. I'm doing these long format podcast showcases. So let's shrink those events down and marry it with the ideas from America's Got Talent, from Kill Tony, and we'll bring it on. We'll have some judges. There'll be guest judges every week, rotating in and out, so you get a fresh perspective. Um, and we'll have a podcast. In about 10 minutes, you can decide. Get a good feeling for a podcast. And we set up a criteria that spans no matter what your podcast is. So no matter who you are, if you're doing an interview style podcast, if you're doing a trivia podcast, if you're doing health and wellness, you're doing yoga stretching, we have these 5 criteria, which are, the audio quality, the production quality, is the host engaging, does the content match the description, and it doesn't matter what type of show, you can fall into these 5 categories. So we're doing kind of like, we're trying to, the goal was to get this scale going because I want to bring back the best for a quarterly showcase and then a end of the year showcase with awards is kind of the big picture here. And
Hmm.
so we're only in the first quarter, and we've had I think we have about 14, 20 shows have been on so far with the new format. Started about episode 10, and I think I just released 17. I'm recording 18 on Tuesday. So we've had 14 16 shows on so far. And
Yeah.
okay,
What
you
I like
just,
about that is it's like a critique type thing. So the competition part is okay. That's not my big reason for watching it. It makes it fun. But the critique part I like because it can help a podcast get better. So you might not have, if your mom's watching your podcast and she's like, "Oh, great, it's great. You don't have to do anything. It's great." Then maybe if you get somebody else and you're not just looking at other podcasts, that helps. And then you have someone else say, the sound quality isn't that great, the lighting is a problem, these other things that I think it is more of a helping the cohort or that class of podcasters. They can help themselves get better. I like that part of it. I think it's cool to watch because of that.
yeah, it's not, we're not trying to be critical. Like we want to critique because we want to be honest with people. And I always think of it a lot like we were talking a lot about comedy already. So in comedy, behind off stage, comedians bust chops with each other. They make fun of each other. And the most respected thing you can do in comedy is a well-crafted roast joke. Like if you were to take the time to understand that person and to craft a joke it could be so brutally mean, but it's crafted in such a way that it's there's truth to it, but there's a level of respect to a roast joke. Like that's actually like a very like, I care about you so much. This joke is so funny and it's true and it's about you and it'll help you. It's just funny because it's made with love and I'm delivering it with respect. Like, and that's kind of what this scale is that I'm doing on my show. I love that you're even taking the chance to do 10 minutes live on my main stage. I am flattered by that. So I want to give back to you this love and respect of here's the truth of where you're at and here's where you're strong, here's where you're weak, here's where the audience thinks you're strong, here's where the audience thinks you're weak, and give them that respect and give them that, the caring about here's what I love about live streaming. I want you to develop that too. And I want to kind of like a good roast joke that has all the elements of love and respect. That's what I want the scoring structure to be about. Just caring about you and making you get to that next level, helping you get to the next level.
Yeah, that's good. You're not BSing them, but you're not just hurling insults. It's good.
Yeah. Some comedians will also tell you to quit and never come back. Like I don't want to do that either. I want to, let's figure out where you're at because everybody's at different levels in this game. Let's figure out, okay, this is where you're coming in now. And I think if you just change, stop wearing the lavalier microphone, stop, rustling your shirt and, listen to how many ums you're saying, listen to how many, listen to just slow down, learn about the mic, your distance from your voice to the microphone. Learn those little techniques will change the audio quality immensely. It'll change everything about your podcast, and those little tips and tricks can be that catalyst.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. How often do you record that show? How long does it take to put an episode together of that?
I love that show. That show's mostly booking. I have the process down. I have the whole structure down. I just have to do a little bit of research on my guests. I got to write out a delivery page. Once we hit record, I have my guests in and out about 40 minutes. So that includes the 2 10-minute segments, plus the 5 to 10 minutes of critiques, plus 5 to 10 minutes of plugs for everybody and making sure everybody can connect with each other. So then the show that we recorded yesterday, I edited this morning. I put about 2 hours into that 40-minute show, just, fine tuning it and cutting and getting the right shots.
And how often is that released? Do you release it on a schedule or like a season, or how do you do that?
Well, it's supposed to be twice a month, but I've been doing one every week. So, one thing that you mentioned that I'm not 100% sure on is that there is becoming like a competitive element. I do hear the shows reference competing against each other. and I may go to just one show per episode and do four shows a month instead of doing 2 episodes of 2 shows a month. I don't know
That's
if it's going to be long enough, to do one show, but I'm starting to get concerned that I don't want these shows to feel like they're butted up against each other. I want them to
Yeah.
complement each other for different reasons, and elevate the whole show together. So I've been tossing that around. Like, is this becoming a competition? Like, do they want to beat the other show? Because I know that of the 16 people, I'm sure only 2 or 3 or 4 of them had listened to the show previously, so they don't know that it's like, oh, this isn't really a competition. It's kind of like, this is like a gift to you, to improve. But I hear people reference all the time, like, yeah, they did great. I was really glad, how they came out, and like no, 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 no. You know, there's no nothing connecting you two together. These are two separate parts. So I also think if I had one guest or one show showcasing per episode, it would make the titles and the descriptions cleaner for search engines instead of competing for my titles and my descriptions with 2 shows and all these links. I think having a single focused episode will not only help the archives, like it'll make, okay, I want to find that show, that I heard on, but now it's grouped with another show. And so I'm thinking about maybe just doing it one showcase per show, still 10 minutes. But I don't know if it's, I like I like 40 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes is my length that I love for a podcast. If I go to one show, I'm probably going to hit 20 to 22 minutes. So I'm a little nervous about the length. That's why I do have 2 shows on.
Yeah, I don't think that's bad. Or if you released them like on the same day and you put 2 shows out a day so somebody could watch 2 20-minute shows, that's not bad.
Yeah, I get worried about like podcast apps tend to only show the newest episode. So if I release 2 at a time, then if I like episode 18 and episode 19, 19 is going to get most of the hits, whereas people would have to know to go back to hit 18. So I mean,
Okay,
I
so
don't mind.
I'm doing it wrong then.
Well, I don't mind doing it. Well, on like YouTube's different. If you're doing YouTube videos on the same day, that's not as bad because your YouTube videos have a much longer lifespan. Though they could gain traction, they can grow over time. Whereas a podcast is really, the delivery in most apps is your most recent episode, right? Is whatever's the newest is up on top. So if you're releasing 3 at a time, the top one's going to be shown first to your guests or to your subscribers, but the next 2 are kind of already buried.
I wonder if you number them, I guess that depends on the individual and how they engage with the podcast they look at. I don't use so much I listen to most of mine or watch most of mine on Spotify.
Okay.
And I don't look at the most recent released. I go to actually that page for that one, and then I scroll down and see where was the last one I looked at. What's the next one? The description means more to me than the order of it. And like if you take Joe Rogan, for instance, if he releases a few on the same day, I think he used to do that. And maybe now it's one a day for a couple days a week.
Okay.
That before, when it had that during the lockdown and such, when it had the warning of, COVID-19 information is this, that one I would go, well, I'm going to listen to that. But, then the ones that didn't have it, I was like, I'll listen to them eventually. I'll come back and listen to them. But like, if I'm looking at the Jocko podcast, I'll look at the topic. And if there's a few in there, because I haven't looked at it for a week or I haven't listened to it for a week, then I'll pick it based on the topic and then go back through. But I had thought recently about, I watch a lot less TV now because of podcasts. So I watch podcasts and listen to them. And I think I need to write down on a piece of paper, like on Monday, I'm going to check out the Joe Rogan ones. On Tuesday, I'll check out Adam Carolla. On Wednesday, I'll listen to whatever other podcast you have lined up. And I think the thing that turns me off most about podcast is so many commercials in it. Like
Yeah.
on the Joe Rogan one, I don't know if you pay for Spotify, because I don't pay for that part of Spotify listening to it. That I don't know if you'll be able to speed through those commercials like you can on his right now, or if they'll be embedded in there. Like Adam Carolla, his show has, it does the come on, there's commercials like within it. You can't, you could speed it through it, but you can't see when it's over. So you're like taking a chance.
Yeah.
So that's the thing I found when I listen to podcasts now. If there's a lot of commercials in there, like every 5 minutes, another commercial comes up, or they say, now let's talk about whatever sponsor. And you're like, man, this just seems like commercial after commercial. The one that specifically, I just thought about that recently, is Jason Whitlock's podcast, where I really like it, but it's just so commercial heavy, and you have to really be on top of it if you want to, 15 seconds, 15 seconds, 15 seconds to try to get to the end of it and not miss what's going on in it.
Yeah.
How do you deal with advertising for your shows, or, what's your experience with that?
Yeah, so I like to hear how people listen to podcasts, because everybody's different. Some people are running in the evenings. Some people are gym listeners. Some people listen at work all day. I can't. I've tried to listen at work. It's too much of a distraction. I have a 45-minute commute to and from work every day, so I use I use Android Auto in my car, and I use an app called Pocket Cast, which I've been using for 10 years. It was a paid app like 15 years ago, where you would pay one time and you got it for life. And I think it was released by NPR, and they've since sold it off. And I'm in like some sort of weird grandfathered package, right? I still have to pay for it, but I get some of the new features. So when I go in, the way I listen to podcasts, I put on Android Auto, I go to my podcast apps in the car, and it lists by newest release. So I can kind of scroll through and pick the newest one. And then once I listen to it, it kind of, I have it set to not stay saved on my phone, so it'll delete it from my phone. And I only have it set up to show me new episodes. So the way I do it, I
Oh,
would never even think of a back catalog. I would
yeah.
just see if it's a new episode, great. If another new episode comes out, I think after 7 days it deletes the old one, so it just gets rid of it for me. I didn't take any interest in it. So for
Wow.
my listening is really different from yours. And I look through new. I try to keep up, almost like inbox zero with people with their email. They always want. Some people are zero unread emails. I'm kind of like
Yeah.
that with podcasts. I don't want any unlistened to podcasts, so I just focus on the new ones, and I don't even think about if I miss it or not.
Huh. I wonder, there has to be some sort of industry study of the percent breakdown of how people look at them. I mean, there has to be so many different types of, I guess it depends on your platform. And then I think drive time is probably the biggest thing
Yeah.
for a podcast. Is that because who sits around at home on the sofa and listens to podcasts? Besides me, I do that. When I'm working out, I don't listen to podcasts. I listen to music. So, but if I'm walking or driving somewhere, it's usually a podcast is going. So that's,
Yeah,
huh.
driving for me for sure. If when I'm home though, I don't listen to podcasts at home. I watch podcasts on YouTube if I'm at home.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever listened to a podcast in my house. Now that I think about it,
Oh,
it's like almost a commute ritual for me. Like, I'm in a car, I'm listening to a podcast.
well, if you're like cutting the grass or doing something, doing some sort of manual labor, I like it because you're just listening to it. And then if they say, look at this thing, then you can stop. And if it's a video podcast, you can watch that part of it.
Uh-huh.
Or, here's a picture of this, here's a clip of that. And then, or you maybe go back later and look it up on YouTube or something. But
Yeah, I have.
that's,
Over the summer I got an electric bike. I was, just fell in love with this thing, and I put like maybe 250 miles on it already. And I got a helmet with it has a little built-in headset that my daughter and I will ride. She got a bike too for her birthday, so we ride bikes every once in a while together, and we'll have our headsets connect. But I notice when I don't go riding with her, I connect my phone to my headset, and I am listening to I'm still commuting though, because I'm still riding my bike around, But I'm
Yeah.
listening to podcasts now while I'm riding my bike.
Huh.
Probably not safe. I mean, I am doing that through traffic and like
You're
downtown.
doing one ear?
What's that?
One ear?
Yeah, it's only one ear.
Yeah, that's good. That's
Yeah.
legal. Or you can get those bone conducting ones, like, this that slip over your ear, and then it's basically just, they call it bone conducting. I don't see the magic in that. It's basically just like having an earphone in front of your ear instead of on your ear.
Yeah.
But those are nice because you can hear if somebody's yelling at you.
Yeah. I do have it on the shoulder side of the road, so at least my other ear is on the inside of the road, towards the
Yeah.
yellow line is open.
Nice. What other stuff do you do in besides work and podcasts that satisfy that creative part of you?
Yeah, it's I haven't really skateboarded in 20 years, but I think about it every day. I would love to, I wish I wasn't 47 and overweight. I still think about skateboarding every day. I still watch skate videos on YouTube. And I really never found anything that fulfilled me like skateboarding until about maybe 10 years ago now. Somebody introduced me to disc golf. And for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, but there was a very mental stimulant thing that happens with disc golf that's very similar to skateboarding, where I don't know if it's the action of performing to get the disc to fly through the woods, if it's watching the flight of the disc, like it's almost like performing a trick to like, how do I flex it around this tree and then back? Is it the sound of the smashing chains? I don't know what it is, but disc golf has this therapeutic thing that skateboarding has. So I will play disc golf on the weekends, and I'm just old enough now. I'm just getting into pickleball, and it's fun. Like that's another thing that it's not as. And I like tennis and I like racquetball, but I'm not as mobile as I was 20 years ago. And pickleball is action packed, like bam, 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 bam. And it's given me some sort of stimulating just to be moving again and to be reacting fast. So those two, everything I've done in my life has been counterculture, right? Skateboarding, disc golf's counterculture golf, and pickleball is the tennis that the HOA hates, I guess.
Yeah, that sounds like your next book then is skateboarding, disc golf, and pickleball.
Yeah.
And you have like a punk rock person on the front of it.
Yeah.
The
It's like
pickleball, my two rules for pickleball are less athletic. That means it's a game that's made for old people if you're just playing regular. If you're in the pickleball leagues and you're out there hitting it with people that are going to tear their knees up because they're being too athletic, then that's a different story. But if you're just out there playing with normal folk, then it's less athletic. So if the ball, if you can get to it, that's great. If you can't, there'll be another one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Walk back.
Yeah. Number two is just get the ball over the net.
Yeah.
Just get over the net. Don't try to do anything fancy. Just get over the net. Those are my two underlying rules for pickleball. And then eventually you start getting where you're putting spins on it and things. And then the trash talking comes in because that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
But usually that's when you're playing against people that are being too athletic that don't know how to play pickleball that well. But I think it's the great equalizing sport because you can have an older person, like a much older person playing against a younger person with a lot of physical ability. But because of all the rules and because of that, less athletic's going to do it. That's the equalizer. So somebody can go, look at that. I just got that score on you. And you go, on the line is in, and your line was on the volley exclusionary zone, the kitchen. I'm sorry, that doesn't count. So then the kid gets mad and the old person's winning.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that attracted, it was actually the older age, because the older players, I don't know what they do, but they have the most insane reaction time. And I'm like, if I'm 60, 70, 80 years old and my reaction time is like that, I'm going to have good cognitive skill. Like, my brain is still functioning. Like I want to I want to be able to, sometimes there's a punch, like you can do a punch to ball
Yep.
with the paddle. You just hold your hand out straight, but the reaction to getting it to where you need it, their reaction times are insane, and they don't move. Like they'll just be planted, and they'll be controlling you with just their reactions. It's so impressive, and that's what I was thinking. Like, okay, I want to be active when I'm older, and I want to have good brain function.
Mm.
So this looks like something that might get me there.
Yeah. I wonder what's the correlation between life experience and being good at pickleball, just average stuff. I'm not talking about super athletes that practice all the time. I'm talking about just normal folk going out there playing pickleball, because the older people that I've played with, or if you go to a park and you put your paddle on there and eventually you get worked in, they are there. All types of people you're going to meet there, but you'll get older people that are really good that don't look like they would be good,
Yeah.
that are really nice, and they'll put up with you. So they're playing a different type of game.
Yeah.
Like they'll play down to you.
Yeah.
And then you'll have the older people that are just like, no, they're going to destroy you. You're going to be running all over the place. It looks like they're standing in one spot and you're never going to get the ball.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to be that guy. I want to be the fun old guy with the quick reaction time.
yeah, but
I'm still going to win. I'm not going to let them win. I'm going to dominate them, but I'll let them have fun while I dominate them.
Yeah, you just beat them by like 2 or 3 points.
Yeah.
Like at any point you could win.
Yeah. I got you. I just want them to know it. Like go and get some chocolate milk, boy.
Yeah. Did your mom touch you like that? What? With skateboarding for me, I wasn't huge into skateboarding. Certainly did not have a skateboard business, but my thing was maybe a few years ago, we're probably about the same age. And I got one of those electric skateboards, not the super fast one, but fast enough to where you could end up in the hospital pretty easy.
Yeah.
And I was riding that, and all I was thinking of that time was, I wonder what happens if a rock hits this wheel, or I hit this curb wrong. So I gave it to my nieces so they can have more fun with it. But I like the idea of being able to get there that way, and being in Florida, it's always usually hot. So not having to kick is good.
Yeah.
But then I also felt like I was cheating. You just jump on it and go. That didn't feel right. And I didn't want to do the board where you're, whatever that's called, where you're just wiggling back and forth. That seems like too much to me. But
yeah. I'd rather push. Yeah, I don't want to look like I'm doing a hula hoop on my skateboard. But just pushing, even getting like a cruiser, a longboard with some softer wheels. Lots of fun. And I'm one of the things, I've lost about 30 pounds, 35 pounds since June, trying to get healthier, getting back. I was almost 300 pounds. I'm down to 260 right now. And
nice.
I'm trying to, the reason I want to get under 250 is 250 is about the max weight for an electric skateboard. So when I get to 225, my reward is I'm going to get myself an electric skateboard and, end up in the hospital or something. But I just want to be able to ride one more time. Yeah.
Yeah. I like them. I think you only need the 1-wheel drive, but when you start getting up to the 2-wheel and the 4 wheels, they have the ones that go like 45, 50. And I'm like, man, that just looks, I've seen a couple people just eat it on those. And you're like, man, that doesn't look good.
Yeah. They have the like mountain board, powered boards now. And even like, and I know I think 20 miles an hour, it doesn't seem fast, but even on my bike, like a pedal bike, pedaling, because with pedal assist, you're still pedaling to get up to speed. The motor will get you to like 15, 16, but you want to get to like 20. You're pedaling pretty fast, and that's only a class 2 bike. The bike I have, you can actually unlock to be a class 3 bike, which would go up to 28 miles an hour. I'm like 20 is pretty fast on a bike. Like you don't think about like how fast it actually is, but I was like, I can imagine going 28 miles an hour on like a 50% speed increase would be insane.
Yeah, goodness. Then you're just wearing helmets and all kinds of stuff. You might as well get a motorcycle.
Yeah.
With the skateboards and the scooters, I was always to the point of I need to go as fast as I can comfortably run at a moment's notice.
Hmm.
So if I fall off, I can just, jog off.
Yeah.
I don't have to go, sprint to
Yeah.
keep up with it, to keep from rolling over. So I like a nice 8 miles an hour. I might even do a little less than that, but
Yeah.
I don't know if it's easier if you're going faster to go over the bumps, but it just seemed like a risk. Seemed like a risk that maybe the 40 to 50-year-old me was not willing to take at that point. But
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I think about. I do think I literally, no joke, think about skateboarding every day. But I also think about what happens when I hit my head. I'm not going to recover like I did as a kid. I never. Luckily, I'm knocking on wood. I didn't have a head injury as a child. But I got a family, I got a mortgage, I got cars, I got a job. I can't
yeah,
spend.
podcast.
I got a podcast. I can't spend 6 months, recovering from a head injury. That's just not in the books anymore. So like the risk reward is like, maybe. And the problem is, I think like, oh, maybe I can just push around a little bit or just carve and pump a bowl. But my mentality doesn't. I know that I can't just do that because I want to do the next little thing past that. Like, okay, I'm gonna get up on the coping. I'm gonna Smith grind. Okay, I'm gonna do a Smith grind to fakie now. Oh boy, now I'm going backwards. Like I'll always
Just a quick handstand.
Yeah, that's why I can't own a motorcycle. Like I won't be able to not push that limit. Like I want to see like, okay, I got it up to that speed on that turn. I wonder if can I get it up to this speed on that turn? Like that's I can't do. I'll never be able to have a motorcycle because I'll push it. I'll be trying to jump off stuff and like it won't. I'll be the problem. I'll end up being the problem.
Stick with those pedal bikes, man.
Yeah, I'm saying that's it. That's my limit.
So what are your future plans, podcast creativity wise then?
Yeah, the big thing for me is finding a physical space. I purchased a stage. I have a portable stage. It's 16 by 8. I have all the things pieced out. I'm ready to go. Like I just trying to find a physical space so I can sell tickets and have people come into my building, to my little theater, to watch my little shows, and then at the same time streaming that. So I think within this year, I've looked at 30 buildings probably so far. I'm looking for and the biggest problem is I just need an empty space. A lot of these buildings are, they were dentist's office or, some sort of business that was there before, and they have all these extra walls I don't need, or they don't have the ceiling height, or the example I gave earlier that it was 17 feet wide by 100 feet long. So
Yeah.
I haven't found, they say when you buy your first house, you'll walk in and you'll know that's the house you were meant for. Like that just clicks for you. The right house finds you. And so I'm waiting. The right building is around the corner this year, and I'll find just a great little, I don't care if it's 20 by 40, a little, what's that, 800 square feet, plus restrooms and stuff will put me maybe 1,200 square foot. Will be a great building for a small little theater, having a little fun, and I'll find it. It's here somewhere.
Need like a old church or something, or a old school. Why not do it at the car dealership just at night, and then you can have like the camera pans from way up high, from like the dealership name live from. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I could get them to have a sponsor. Sell the naming rights to the stage.
Nice.
Join us on the Acura stage. So that's a big goal. Big goal for me for 24 is really this program I was talking about with through. It's called the Acre program through Bridgeway Capital, and it's 10 local business owners, photographers, and crafters, and myself with the entertainment side, and they're just helping local businesses get established. And I want to get through this program. It wraps up in about June, and I've learned I got so many tips and tricks. Even today, I had a meeting with an accountant that they pay for and really consult with me. We got my QuickBooks all in order, and I'm getting all this structure, and I'm getting it's becoming a business idea, and I think everything's going to really come together. June's when this program wraps up, but before then, the connections I've made already, the way I'm positioning this, the way I'll be seeking maybe outside investors, all those things are going to start to really hit around June, July, August. And if I can get something, find a space by then, ramping up, because I really think this is also this is a cold weather events platform for the type of things I'm going to be doing. People aren't going to come into a theater probably to watch a podcast in June, July, August. Not brand new. I think as the weather chills in Western PA, school starts back up. It gets darker earlier. People will start to be more interested in that event. So I think launching this type of live theater that hasn't existed before, a podcast theater, I think late in the year, that you're late September, October, November, when it's getting darker, we're turning the clocks back. There's nothing else to do. You can't stay outside longer. Let's go see a show. And I think that's the right time to launch a concept like this. So I see by the end of the year, all this coming together, and dreams can come true.
Nice. Do you have an image or a picture of what the theater will look like? You got to do it like the Coliseum. You got to do it like a regular theater. What are you thinking?
I like the idea of, when you listen to a podcast, it's so intimate, right? It's one-on-one. It's who's ever in your ear is in your brain, right? And you're connecting with that voice, that person, their thoughts, your thoughts, and there's this exchange. So I heard Todd Glass one time talk about the perfect comedy theater, and he said it would be almost pitch black. You wouldn't have any distraction. The only thing you would see would be the people on the stage or the comedian on the stage. But I'm thinking, a very dark room, black curtains, the stage is open, and the only thing that is really lit up and the focus is on the people who are on the podcast. There's no wall lights, there's nothing, no distraction. It's just, I want it to be close and intimate. I want it to be so that same experience you hear when you listen to a podcast where you're connecting with that person. I want, people up close, and I want the only thing in that room to focus on is the two or the podcasters on stage. Not worried about, a lot of times you have arches over stages and you have lights on the side or mounted TV monitors. I just want dark and focused, so that to try to recreate that intimate experience you get with a podcast in real life.
Nice. Well, I hope that works out.
Yeah, me too.
What are the best ways that people can follow you on the internet machine?
On the internet's interwebs, you can find LinkedIn is a great place to connect with me, and you can see some of my expertise in the automotive industry. I have a lot of connections there. I do have a website. It's just my name, jeffrevilla.com. If you're interested in any of these live events that I'm talking about, or you want to support other content creators who are doing live events, Paduty, PODUTY.com, Paduty.com. We have dates and deets at Paduty.com. You can see other independent content creators. You can see some of the shows that I'm producing. You can even list your own show, and there's no charge. I'd love it. If you have an event coming up, no matter where you're live streaming, if anybody would like to share it there, I approve everything. So if you list it, I'll take a look at it. I'll get in touch with you, and we'll build out a landing page and get everything set up for you. You can promote your show that way and get, calendar invites into your audience's hands. So those are probably the two best ways. If you liked any of the trivia stuff we were talking about earlier, it's stuffineverknew.com. And the other show is Rise and Outshine. But you can you'll find that on Paduty. That one is powered by Paduty under podcast.
Nice. And I'll put all those links in the show notes as well, so people can look down there and go straight to them.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time and all your stories and insight. I think it's given me some things to think about as well. So
Yeah, this was a great conversation.
Yeah. All right. Well, then we'll listen to this this drum track on the way out, and then I'll talk to you on the other side of that.
All right. Thank you.
All right.